Like over 70% of the world's population, I have a fear of public speaking. One of the ways this manifests itself for me is that I typically can't eat until after I finish my talk, which makes evening talks super fun. A while ago, I was scheduled to be an afternoon keynote speaker at a conference, and the talk went great, but for some reason, I still could not eat even after my portion of the day. Afterwards, a few of my friends who attended the conference and I decided to go out for dinner, and I was so excited to finally eat. The restaurant we chose served bread and butter as we perused the menu. And as soon as our waitress set the basket down, I saw it. The most perfect roll. I locked in, and what happened next I can only describe as an out-of-body experience. My friend happened to reach for the same roll at the same exact time as me, and without realizing it, I smacked her hand away from the full, untouched basket of identical little rolls. I was pretty embarrassed. I still am, and we turned to each other with a look of shock on both of our faces, which thankfully quickly turned to laughter. I apologized, and she insisted that I take the roll we were both eyeing. I tell you this, not because I particularly love sharing embarrassing stories about myself, but because hunger can make us do things that can seem out of character, that can surprise those closest to us and even ourselves. Hunger and food insecurity are different. Hunger is a physiological response, whereas food insecurity, per USDA's definition, is the limited or uncertain availability of nutritionally adequate and safe foods, or the limited or uncertain ability to acquire acceptable foods in socially acceptable ways. The topic of food insecurity has been my area of research for the past few years, and in that time, I've seen the numbers grow, and they're shocking. In a study published in 2019, prior to the onset of the COVID pandemic, Dr. Sarah Goldrick-Robb and researchers from the Hope Center found that over 40% of students at four-year institutions and almost half of the students at community colleges experience food insecurity. This is staggering. Let those numbers sink in. When talking about food insecurity, as with most issues, it's important to zoom out and look at the wider context of things, the why of it all. For starters, college student bodies are increasingly diverse, and while this is certainly not a bad or negative thing by any means, this does mean that our higher education institutions must expand and diversify their student services as well, if our goal as a society and of higher education institutions is to foster student success, well-being, and thriving. Today, more than ever, students are from households at or below 130% of the federal poverty line, working multiple jobs, and a majority are non-traditional students, which now seems ironic in its name. But a non-traditional student means that they fall into one of the following categories. They're a part-time student, a single parent, taking care of dependents, financially independent, and or working full-time. There's also been an increase in the number of students who are first generation and students of minority populations as well. Other factors to consider include the decrease in the value of popular grants, such as the Pell Grant, the decrease in the value of the minimum wage, and the extraordinarily high and increasing price of a post-secondary education. That's a lot of obstacles, especially considering that people largely consider food to be their most flexible expenditure. This means that food and food security often lose in a game of would you rather. Would you rather have somewhere to sleep every night or something to eat every day? Would you rather buy gas or go out for a meal with friends? Would you rather buy textbooks or groceries? With your limited funds and time, would you rather have fresh produce and nutritious food to cook or fast food and takeout? Would you rather have a college degree or food security? These are not the questions that our students or really anyone should have to ask. There's this constant stress for those who experience food insecurity. So much so that students who experience food insecurity also report higher cases of chronic diseases, such as diabetes, hypertension, lung disease, and obesity, as well as increased rates of anxiety. And all of this with the knowledge that a post-secondary degree is essentially required to enter the workforce now. But students who experience food insecurity are also at an increased risk of dropping out of a class or out of college altogether. And the effects of an incomplete post-secondary degree can be detrimental to an individual, their household, and community. An incomplete post-secondary degree can prevent an individual from obtaining a higher-paying entry-level job, negotiating for a higher salary, and can prevent upward mobility in one's profession, and thus in society in general, cementing the fact that food insecurity only feeds the cycle of poverty and starves people of their chance to reach self-fulfillment and actualization. And yet, we continue to expect our college students to attend all classes in a timely manner, balance a job and/or internship, give back to the community, start a socially aware side gig, cultivate and maintain positive relationships and socially advantageous and strategic ones as well. Oh, and pay for things like rent, utilities, car payments, gas, groceries, etc., while learning how to navigate the real world of things like taxes or crippling student loans, let alone if they're a student athlete or if they have scholarships that require additional commitments. That's a lot. This is a lot for one student. And all of this while sitting in a time of trying to figure out who they really are and what their vocational calling truly is. Yikes. And if you're thinking that this applies to other people, but not to me or my friends, I want to rewind to a very sobering experience for me. A while ago, I was hanging out with some friends, talking about my research, nerding out on some statistics and findings, and a little later on in the evening, a friend turned to me with a pretty serious look on his face, and he said, "Hey, I think that's me." I want to highlight two things about that interaction. One, he said it quietly, like he couldn't believe that this pertained to him or that he didn't want our other friends to hear. And two, he's my friend. This is someone that I was in community with on a fairly consistent basis. He wasn't some percentage or some citation. This is someone that I knew. Yet he was experiencing something that took me writing reports and a thesis and intentionally researching to bring up. He was a full-time student. He had a job and an internship. And even though he wasn't from a lower socioeconomic status, nor was he a first-generation student, he still experienced food insecurity. As I continued on with my research and continued talking about this issue, I had more and more interactions like that. Eventually, I had more parents and older adults coming up to me to share stories of their own experiences, not realizing that their experience was valid enough to have a name. This largely hidden crisis has been around for generations. And while it's not easily solved, there are steps that we can take to address it. Colleges and universities can house on-campus food pantries. They can accept SNAP benefits and help their students apply for SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly known as food stamps, which is available for many college students. They can implement a meal swipe donation program or develop or utilize an app that allows their students to be alerted when there's free and available food on campus. They can gather more data and information about the lived experiences of their student body and always keep the door open for more conversation. For teachers and professors, or really anyone in direct contact with college students, some risk factors or common signs of food insecurity include students who are from lower socioeconomic statuses, students who are first generation, students of minority populations, students who struggle to obtain secure housing or lack reliable transportation. Additional signs include if they consistently ask to bring food home from events, or if you believe they do not have access to required class materials, such as textbooks. And even if they appear to be constantly zoning out or falling asleep in class, as this may not be an indication of their lack of desire to engage with you or the material, and more of a reflection of their very full and anxious minds. For those of you who are not in direct contact with college students but still want to do something about this issue, I highly encourage you to reach out to a college or university student services department and ask questions. Ask if they have an on-campus food pantry, or ask what resources or initiatives are available for students in need. Ask what barriers there are that prevent their students from accessing such resources, and see if your connections or funds can help address such barriers. Ultimately, just ask. Of course, the importance of zooming out of the issue of food insecurity doesn't stop with higher education institutions. The issue of food insecurity calls us to reckon with its larger implications, to carefully consider our priorities as a society, and to honestly reflect on the importance of securing basic needs for all. With the amount of resources that we have access to and our collective desire to enact social change for good, our students, our future workforce, our fellow humans should not have to play a never-ending game of would you rather, where there are no winners. Thank you.